So the first question is really around that. How do you focus on your own motivation, and what actions and steps do you take to motivate yourself? Let's start with you, Anup.
Thanks, James. Firstly, thanks for having me. Great event so far. But going back to your question around motivation, I think motivation is a mental process, right? And it's something that, regardless of situation or circumstance, I think you have an element of control over. So, for me personally, how I stay motivated is by kind of really breaking down or differentiating between what I would kind of call the destination and the path. So if you look at kind of when we come into roles, whether it's kind of building out a new region or very aggressive growth targets, they can seem quite daunting. And I know for anyone that's kind of been on a diet or trying to get their summer body in shape, like if you decide to say, right, I want to lose X amount of weight, that can seem quite far away. But if you break that down into like little weekly goals of what you want to lose, then that can make it look so much more manageable. And in the same kind of vein, that's what I tend to do, is like have the destination, but then kind of like have a plan and a path to that destination. So at that point, it's the small wins that motivate me towards the end goal. And that could be from, I don't know, did I get the headcount I wanted and hired in time? Did we onboard or reduce ramp time? Little wins, I think, make it really important for me and help motivate me.
Fantastic. And what about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, great points. I love those, Anup. So for me personally, I mean, I'm motivated to do the best job that I possibly can. I'm very conscious of what my intrinsic motivators are versus what is extrinsic. So for me, I will make sure that at the beginning of the week, I'm setting out what my goals are, how they're aligned with what our OKRs are for the quarter. And then something that I recently started doing, which is a really nice reflection exercise, is on a Friday afternoon now, I do my weekly wins. So it just helps me to check back in on, actually, am I doing the things that I need to be doing? And that in itself keeps me motivated, because I know that I'm kind of working towards and getting closer to the goals that I've got. And I think, as a sales leader, and I'd implore all the sort of sales leaders on the call, I think you have a responsibility and a duty to keep yourself motivated, because the team around you will be able to see and feel that. So I think you have to really lead by example.
Yeah, I think good points. We had Elaine Tyler, the CEO of Venatrix, and Charles Tristram, the CEO of Oxano, on earlier, talking about how to hire talent. And they were talking about the importance of the sales leader in the recruitment process, obviously in the day-to-day as well. But I think if you can't demonstrate that you are inspired yourself and that you're highly motivated, then it's very difficult to attract other talent towards you from outside the organization. So this is why it's such a important point to be able to illustrate, your own motivations and how you get there. I mean, something that I like to do is, and I think this comes from my sporting background, I used to row to a competitive standard, spent the last week at Henley Regatta, which was great, but is kind of visualization. And you talked about the destination of where you're trying to get to, but I almost like to kind of rehearse and visualize what I look and feel like in that final outcome of what I'm trying to work towards, and then I feel that it becomes like almost absorbed into how I approach my then day-to-day, to break it down into small wins, as you talk about. Because if I've got that visual of what the future looks like from a business perspective, an organization perspective, how I fit into that, I feel that I kind of then embrace the steps I need to take to actually work towards that. So great first points.
I love that, James. I think I'll just probably add just one other point on how I motivate myself, would just be around, just surround yourself with similar leaders, right? That have similar goals. So sometimes you're going to have your ups and downs, your good months, your good quarters, your bad. And it's just taking that inspiration from your own network as well, because everyone's in a similar boat.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, for me, that was one of the inspiration 5 years ago to set up Sales Confidence, was to be able to have a community of leaders where you can come and share your challenges and share an honest perspective on what you're facing, because then you feel like you've got a mutual group of people that can support you. Because the reality is, this is the truth. Sales leadership is a tough gig. Like, like everyone who's listening on this call, and you both know it, is that there's always continuous pressure on you to perform. And, you know, while another fundraising round looks good, you know, that brings more pressure and more emphasis on what is required to be successful. So, like, this is the point of today. You know, this is why I'm trying to bring people together and encourage a conversation. And it's great hearing your own perspective on how you kind of motivate yourself. I guess the question I've got for you is, like, is there someone in your life, or, you know, something in your life that's inspired you to be the way that you are? So is there like something where that motivation comes from for you to be great? What about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to your point earlier about kind of sales leadership being a tough gig, I remember someone saying once a few years ago, I'm motivated by my successes, but I'm even more motivated by my failures. That really resonated with me. So I just wanted to kind of pick up on that point that you made. So for me personally, it's a very personal thing, but I came from pretty sort of, you know, humble background. So for me, my motivation is doing as well as I possibly can so that I can provide for my friends and family around me and have the life that I didn't necessarily have growing up. So that's a pretty kind of strong intrinsic motivator for me. You know, like I say, as a sales leader, I think it is and as a servant leader, I think it's your responsibility to be the best that you can be for those around you, because sales leadership comes with a big responsibility. So, yeah,
it's great. That's really interesting. What about you, Anup?
Very similar vein there to what Rebecca said. Again, humble beginnings. My dad lost his business when I was fairly young, so it meant that I kind of had to kind of put myself through school and uni, and I saw friends at the time that were working and had things that I didn't really. So that kind of inspired me to kind of work really hard to give myself and my family things that I didn't have the opportunity to have before. That being said, I think initially it was kind of very materialistic, if I'm honest, around what motivated me personally. But as you kind of grow and develop, your motivators change, right? And that has happened for me over time. But yeah, that was a big reason that I was kind of inspired and just really, really driven to make things work.
A bit personal maybe, but from a professional context, like if you think back in your career, like how have you used motivation to overcome a professional challenge, like, and thought about the difficulty that you might have faced and being able to overcome that with being motivated and inspired? Have you got like any examples that you can think of, maybe, Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to be motivated to do this role, right? I think sales leadership and sales role is so much based on motivation. But I think that, you know, for me personally, like I always come back to my why, and I think it's being that self-aware to understand, like, why are you doing this, and make sure that that is tied back to not just your why, but then also why you know, what's the company's goal and vision and mission. Because I think if you can kind of like link your own value system and your own motivations to what the company is trying to achieve, and, you know, it could be a tenuous link, but even if there's some link there, I think that will give you the kind of fire that you need to go through some of the difficult times and challenges that you face.
Brilliant. Anup?
From my point of view, I think there was an example when I took a role and upon kind of signing and then actually joining, a large proportion of the sales team left, which kind of did knock me back a bit, because you're like, look, you've got this number. And I think we all know as sales leaders that whether someone's off sick or you lose someone through natural attrition or performance management, the number doesn't change, right? You don't get reduction, you just have to go and do the job. So yeah, that was a tough one coming into that job. But I think for me, what kept me going and motivated was that I knew it was a process, right? And I think that we have to look at it. It's not a quick win when you're a sales leader and you're trying to build your career and you're kind of playing instrumental parts in organizations to build certain regions, it may be. But I think at that point, trusting yourself, knowing it's a process, and just for me, it's like, look, I've done this before, and having that experience before kind of made me feel reassured but motivated I could kind of do it again. So that's how I've kind of used that before, James.
Yeah, great example. And that would have been a tough pill to swallow when you just arrived in a new organization to see half the team leave at the door. But clearly you've overcome that and had successes. I'd like to understand a little bit more about your current teams, because what's interesting about this conversation, you've both landed companies that are based outside of the UK into the UK and you're responsible for the international growth in EMEA for those organizations. So I'd love to understand a bit about your structure, you know, so the audience can understand, like, what does your sales team in EMEA look like? And then how do you approach motivating that team? So starting with you, Rebecca, you know, what's the structure of your sales team and how do you approach motivating them to work towards the goals and targets you've set for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Vidyard, we're a Canadian headquartered business. We've got about 350 people globally. But over here in EMEA, we've got a pretty small team. So we've got 7 account executives, a senior solutions consultant, and also an SDR, BDR hybrid. So it's a really kind of close-knit team. And one of the things that we did when I first started was an exercise around really helping the team to understand what their aspirations are and what their motivations are. Because I think it's really important for the team to be able to reflect that and understand that in themselves. And then once we all shared that information across the team, which was really, really great, because you get to build trust and understand, like, what are other people's aspirations and motivations and why are they here? And then you can bubble that up to actually what we're trying to achieve here in EMEA, and it's all around that sort of growth. And the size of the opportunity is fantastic. So I think it's making sure that you reiterate that with the team, that actually their personal goals and motivations and aspirations can align with what we're looking to do as a business, and then that can help them to achieve those things.
Great. Out of interest, are you mainly remote?
We are, yes. Yeah, we are.
So, like, how often do you bring the team together to, you know, run reviews or kind of inspiration sessions? Does that happen, or does it all kind of work remotely?
Yeah, so we do a team meeting on a Monday, which is kind of like a sales meeting, op review on a Monday morning, and then we have a huddle on a Wednesday morning and a Friday morning with different kind of like themes at each session. A lot around enablement for the team, some rep-led enablement, some of it's just fun, which is just bringing the team together. But then what we've tried to do, so whenever we've been at any particular events, so they could be industry events. Obviously, when we came to the sales confidence event back in March, that was great because I got the team together and we all kind of spent some time over those couple of days, which was brilliant to build some relationships and get some connective tissue. So it was great.
Great. And what about your setup, Anup?
Yeah, so Attentive, we're a US HQ'd organization out of New York. From my point of view, I'm responsible for the EMEA region, Australia, APAC, and Canada, to pretty much every country outside the US. So it can be challenging from that point of view. Looking at team structure, we have obviously new business sales, quite unique at Attentive in the fact that it's not just like, do we go after enterprise or mid-market or SMB? We pretty much have a team and people in roles that go after pretty much everyone across the board. So new business sales, CS, partnerships, BDRs, marketing, pretty much all cross-functional comes into me. And again, that's going to be replicated in different countries as we grow. But that's the structure. With regards to kind of motivation and how to kind of keep that team pumped for the challenge ahead, I think a lot of it comes down to understanding the individuals within your team. And I think we, as sales leaders, we interview people a lot. And when you always ask that question, why are you looking to leave? Yes, money's a part of it. But a lot of people I often hear is because I don't get any personal development and growth, right? And that could be around career, it could be personal growth, whatever that looks like. So for me, it's about ensuring that whilst we are giving our team members the kind of financial benefits and the incentives around spiffs and good comp plans, we need to be able to develop people. So kind of having personal development plans, coaching plans really helps and motivates people, and then kind of giving them additional responsibilities seems to work quite well. And again, just kind of communicate often to the team. I think this is key. Like if you want to build belief and you want to motivate, so there's no point in just kind of having a one big hurrah meeting and then never kind of reaffirming how well we've done, what we're still looking to go and do for the rest of the year or the rest of the quarter. So I think it's that communicate and align the team.
Brilliant. Is this the first time that you've had responsibility for cross-functional teams outside of sales, or have you done that before?
I have done that before at times as well. So yeah.
Is there a difference in terms of like how you position like the goals and what you need to do to motivate people that sit outside of like the core sales function? Like, are you dealing with kind of different types of characters?
Yeah, 100%. I think at that point, like when you look at people in functions, can be kind of like very driven around, this is my goal, this is my target, and this is what I do. When you're looking at wider functions, it's about kind of bringing that together to make sure that we get to the kind of the main destinations we've kind of used in this kind of talk today, but kind of helping them understand that the part that they play and how important that part is in making the whole machine work. Otherwise, you've got a lot of parts that can be really great, but it's about bringing those parts together and just kind of motivating people, like recognizing small things often as well. Public praise across departments really tends to help as well to align everyone to the larger goal.
Brilliant. With kind of the individuals that you have within your team, like, do you require or request participation from those that aren't necessary leaders? So you're obviously defined as the leader of your organization, but do you have others in the team that maybe they're individual contributors, but they're actually, lent on by you to step up and guide and mentor others and coach others? Like, do you set any expectation on others in the business to kind of be people that can be lent on? Rebecca, you're nodding there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what tends to happen is you'll see those kind of natural born leaders, if you will. But I think it's really important as well. So, you may have a few people who are introverts, and there can be salespeople that are introverts. And it's like, how do you kind of draw that out of them around what their aspirations are and where they want to get to? I've done exercises before in the team where you look at people's special powers. So, what is it that they're bringing to the table? What is it that they're an expert at and that can add value to the team, so that you can really lean on them and that the team know that that's the go-to person. So I think, to be an effective leader, you need to have your kind of left-hand, right-hand people to really kind of help you in certain areas. And it's recognizing what your strengths are and where you need additional support, and how can the team kind of help and support you with that. So I think as you rise, I think you need to help and lift others around you.
Brilliant. And any final thoughts from you, Anup?
Yeah, and I'm just conscious of time, so I kind of agree with everything that Rebecca said. I'd probably just add, look, you can't scale if you try and do everything. Like, we generally have an ethos of hire smart people, let them do their jobs, but just empower them in the right places. So I think at that point, you need to have a good team around you. I don't claim to be the expert in every part. Utilize your experts and let them shine.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. You're both inspiring individuals to me, and I recommend people reach out to you on LinkedIn if they, want to gain more insight and understanding on how you approach growing the sales functions that you're responsible for. Enjoy the rest of the day, guys, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, James.
Cheers, Anup. Cheers, Rebecca.